Hello my friends, John LaRuffa here with another Straight Up Solo, and in this episode we're going to take a look at the expansion for Tawantinsuyu, the Golden Age. I'm going to explain to you the modules that come with this. I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of the new bot mode, which is the Pachamama bot, and then I'll let you know what I think about the expansion and what it does with the base game. Alright, let's get started. Okay folks, and as usual, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. And if you have, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. You're really helping me out here. All right, so this is what the game looks like with all the modules in play and all of the stuff from the expansion out. Now, one thing you really can't see in this is way back over there. You know, I've got the offers for the buildings, the palaces, the statues, and the tapestries, but it's over there. And the Automa stuff, the Pachamama, as it were, is kind of over down in this area over here. Now, I'm going to show you a couple things right away because this is the biggest change from the base game to this one. The Automa has gone through a rework, and they made things a little bit more streamlined. First, here's the new board. Now, it's slightly different if you play with the expansion. Notice how or some of the expansions, notice I've got these little tiles over there on the outside. That's for one of the expansions. But basically, it looks like this. And what's going to happen is, instead of this one, which is the one we had with the base game, this one was fine, but there were some things, especially the Conquest, which was very confusing to try to figure out what is it going to do first and how is it going to happen. Plus, you had some of this stuff as it was taking workers. It was just this. It was a little bit more difficult to implement. And then when you discarded cards, sometimes you gain victory points, and it was just. And there's this no worker action kind of thing. They've replaced a lot of that, and they've made it easier. Okay, so first of all, with the Conquest, it's simpler to figure out what it's going to do. Second of all, the first thing it looks at is how it's going to, just like it did in the other one, how it's going to play, if it's going to play in that little center region over there. And it's easier to just to accomplish these things. And it looks like, it gives you the activation conditions. They're very similar to the way that were before. But this whole like ready to conquest thing, as far as the soldiers and the amount of soldier cards they have ready and in their hand and stuff, is just easier to do than it was in the original. So that's number one. Number two, notice that there are more places to customize what the bot will do. So you can put things in these spots, which helps it focus and increases the difficulty. It did take away one of the twos, so the two space is not quite as powerful as it was before in the other one. But other than that, that's pretty much it. It just seems, for me playing it, that it's easier to use than this one. In fact, they recommend don't even use this one ever again, just use this one. And I would agree, it seems a little bit simpler. Now, streamlined, I guess, is the best word, because this bot was one of the toughest bots to learn, because it does things slightly differently than you do. But it's just easier now, and that's a plus. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing that you get with this expansion is you get this bottom board here, which is double-sided, and you can flip that over. And what this will do is this will change the temple tracks and make the temple more interesting. It gives you a couple choices, which is more interesting, and it adds a little variety, which I like. There's also a couple more cards that go into play when you put this one out. The expansion also comes with a whole host of additional passive buildings that do or don't get added depending on which modules you play with, and also one production building that gets added no matter what you do. So you got that. Then you have the situation of these things right here. And what this does is this adds more variety to the conquest tracks. So on your secondary turn, you can, if there are conquest markers in here, you can spend a secondary action around here as one of the two to put one of your conquest markers on there, and by paying a potato for every existing marker that's already out there, including the one you play down. and then you will be able to have more influence out here. Plus, if you don't want to pay the potato, you can still place it out there. It's no big deal, but then you don't get to do this. And what this does is each of these allows you to play one of these new tokens, and the new token itself will do something permanently for you for the rest of the game. And they have a, they also have the bot doing the same thing. The bot can place one or two of those tokens in a spot and gives it better permanent abilities, which will make it stronger. Now, this bot needs that. But it does interact fully with that expansion, just like it interacts fully with this expansion. In this case, it'll do a die roll to see whether it's going to go left or right on the track whenever the track splits. So the main deal about this edition is that it makes these things more interesting, because there is a stack of these that come out. So there's all sorts of different ones you can put into play here, and all of these will do something different. So there's a whole host of additional options here. And when you put them out, they're out there for the rest of the game. But this will add substantial additional replayability and choices. And there's one tile for each one of these that the bot uses when they take their action. The third expansion, and probably the one that adds the most additional things, are it's the Palace and Newcomers expansion. So you'll notice here, the newcomers are now in the village on the bottom. They're not really part of the village. They're a couple, but I'll show you them up closely. They're double colored workers, pardon me. And what happens is when you place these workers, they act as both colors, but one actual worker. So when you put it down on the board, you can resolve one color for the purposes of tasks and the other color for the specialist, or both for the specialist and the tasks. So you can either or, and they always work as both once they're out there. So it gives you some more flexibility and makes them a little more powerful kind of worker. The only way you could get them, though, is when you get one of these palace cards. And the way it works is when you recruit for a palace, and you pull, I should say, when you get another worker, when you recruit from a worker, however you want, if it matches one of the colors of the palace card that you have here, in this case blue or green or whatever, you could put that right down on and stand it up on your existing palace. What this will do is it will give you some kind of benefit when somebody activates this kind of power. You, or maybe sometimes it's other things, depending on if someone does. So this, and if your worker's standing up, you can then, keep going back and forth, sorry. You can then do whatever it says, So for instance, in this case, it says if someone takes a nomad worker, then you can spend 2 stone to build a staircase anywhere you want. So there's lots of those things, adds a considerable amount of more things to consider and variety and variability of the game. You build those palaces when you build buildings like you would when the production buildings were the passive ones. The AI also interacts with those and will recruit for those if given the opportunity, but the building for the AI remains blank, and I don't believe it does anything with it except scores points at the end of the game. And these buildings can be worth up to 8 points if you have a worker on them, you've accomplished the prophecy, which is like the bottom condition. Didn't show you that, but I'll show you this one. For instance, this one is, if at the end of the game you have at least 3 combination of blue or green workers, you will score 5 points for this. So it helps you score. So there is a lot going on additional now in this game. And maybe that's something that you were looking for, and if it is, you got it in spades. If it isn't, this is going to overwhelm you even more than the base game. But we'll get to that in a second. So the basic situation of the gameplay is the same. I will show you a couple of turns, but I did a teaching game on this in a different video so you can see it, what happens. So on my turn, for instance, so I'm the one who's going next. Excuse me. Actually, no. He is next. The Pachamama. He, she, I don't know, the bot. And so what the bot's going to do is it's going to check, does it meet any of the conditions to do this action or this action? And so you look and you say, okay, does it have more than 4 corn? It does not have more than 4 corn, so it does not get to do this. How about this one? Does it have 2 face-up production buildings? No, it only has 1. So what it's going to do is it's going to move this and take no action, and then it's going to roll the dice. It rolls a 4, so it's going to activate spot number 4. Okay? Oh, and I forgot, it was supposed to get a worker from the nomad spot. So let me do this. This is supposed to happen previously, so it has at least one worker to work with. And actually, what it would have done is it would have gotten this worker, the green one, put it on its palace, stood it up, then picked up this one, had this worker. With these double-colored workers, it does not get a benefit or a bonus for having those. All right, so we put that out on the nomad space, and then we draw from this bag and put one out here. All right. So now it rolled a 4 like I showed you before. So the 4 is going to activate this space here and this space here. But first, it's going to place a worker on the cheapest food-wise it can right out here. So it just puts this worker out there. It never takes the action on the board. It will only activate what it says here. So in this case, it says recruit from the nomad spot. So we go ahead and roll. We get a 1, so it gets the yellow. The yellow means a potato and a point. So it gets a point and a potato. All right, and we draw from the bag to refill. And we move, well, there is no way to move. That one does not have a spot to move. It's just on the board. And then we do this, 2 corn. So we get 2 corn, and we move this 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we take the 4 card and we add it over here, and we flip this over here. In general, doing the worker placement activation steps, like you just saw, are actually pretty simple. It's a little bit more complicated. Really, it comes down to the conquest is probably the biggest one, but that's not that bad. It's better in this game. Okay, so then that bot's done. It's finished. Now it's my turn. I could do anything I usually want. I could take a secondary action by going around with 2 of those. I could decide to play some cards. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try to get some potatoes because I don't have any potatoes and I need those for the actions I'm going to do. So I'm standing over here. So per the base game, I need to either have a gold or something that's going to allow me to place a guy in those spots. And I do have this. This will allow me to place 1 or 2 workers over here. And I'm going to place this one. And for the purposes of, so it's 2 colors, right? So the purposes of what it's doing, I'm going to play it as the warrior first, and I'm going to capture a non-warrior guy. I can actually capture this guy because I can pretend he's a white guy instead of a warrior color, and he's now captured. So that's the first thing I do. Now, because I captured, did I get that building? Yes, I have a passive ability that says when you... actually, that's when you place a red worker, which I just did. So I placed a red worker, so I get to flip over 2 of my buildings that might be unflipped, which is really good. I get to rejuvenate that way. Then, the other thing is I'm going to make it a yellow. So I did the task in the red. Now I'm going to make it a yellow for, I did the special ability in the red. I'm going to make it a yellow for the tasks. That's 1, 2, 3 tasks. So it gets, I can take the 3 potatoes for the 1 icon over here. I can build a building, and I want to build a palace building, and each palace building is a potato and a stone. I'm going to build this one over here. This one could be cool. Let's give it a shot. So this is another one for yellow. Yes, so the good news about this is it's got a yellow guy on it, and I want yellow for my special abilities there. So I'm happy with that move. So I built that, and then finally I'm going to take 2 of these army cards, look at one, dump the other. So we'll look at this one, or we'll keep one, dump the other. Now because there's 3 out here, I have to clear the board first before adding that one and then shuffling these in. Then at the end of my turn, I could, and I will, spend a potato or corn to recruit more guys. I'm going to spend a potato to recruit this guy on the, I guess it's got to be this guy up top, which is good because that's a yellow. So when I recruit this yellow, I can stand him up in my new palace, and then I can choose one of these guys here. And because I get special rejuvenation stuff for capturing people, I'm going to use this red one again. I'll get that. So we're going to go ahead, take this down, put another one on there, and away we go. Now notice there's a lot to this game, right? There's nothing different. It just adds more with the expansions, more things to note. The expansion and the expansion rule book itself is 23 pages long. Okay, there is a full reprint of how to play the solo in this rule book, which is, I'm so happy they did that, because now I don't have to try to figure out what does this one do versus that one. They did a great job by just reprinting the whole thing start to stop, so you can really just learn the golden age way to do the solo right there by reading it right from this book. That's awesome. But there's another one. I mean, the base book itself is 27 pages. So this game is still just as heavy, if not heavier, than it always has been. So just be aware. That's what you got going on. All right, so you saw two turns for me. I'm going to stop the video, and if you want to see another one, go ahead and watch my teach of the base game. It'll give you the whole explanation of how everything works, and then you can see. But let me tell you what I think about this expansion itself. Okay, so hopefully there you saw the full content. You got an idea what you're getting in the expansion box, and a little bit of an understanding of the gameplay, just a smidge, okay? Let me tell you that I still like this game an awful lot. This is still one of my favorite T games in that series, but it is also now just even more loaded with choices and things you have to understand. I am going to try to play this game enough before I put it away so that I don't have to completely learn it again when I pull it back out, because it is so much to learn. Like I said, you've got 27 pages in one rule book, 23 pages in another. I mean, and they aren't, the good news about these rules is the rules are well written. I would say they are, but the best thing about the rules is that they contain a lot of appendix material that tells you exactly how the buildings work, because I still find there's so many icons in this game, especially on the buildings, that's very difficult to understand exactly what they're telling me. I still have it. I mean, this game is its own language in regards to all those icons too. I mean, it's like, does anybody have any idea what that could mean? I mean, I have an idea. That means that when this action's taken, you do something here. I don't know if that means reorganize your stuff, if it means shuffle. It's just too tough to know sometimes. And there's some of them that are much easier, right? This one's much easier. It says, pay a potato to get a gold card. No problem. Okay, I get it. But it's a heavier lift. It is a heavier lift. This game is definitely one of the heaviest I have from a standpoint of operating the bot, playing the game, figuring out the strategy for what you want to do. Because even after you've learned the game, now it's like, well, how do I score good points? What should I be working on? There is an overwhelming amount of choices in this game, which I don't mind, but it does push the limits of what I am capable of doing in my where just barely edges out in the fun versus the work. Okay, now I still like the game because I do enjoy really heavy games like this, but this one, I mean, I'm saying it. The reason I'm throwing that out there is because if you play the base game, even though this is a more streamlined bot, the extra stuff, if you decide to add those, is going to slow you down a bit more. I still think it's actually worth it, though. I would highly recommend this game, the expansion, for people who like the base game. Whether the bot was tough for them or not, it's an overall additional improvement where these things add more variety and more to a game that you could say after a while kind of stagnates a bit just because the board placement's the same. And obviously you have plenty of buildings, but now you have even more buildings. Now those conquest tracks are even more interesting. The temple is even more interesting. They really did a good job making the game, I'd say, physically more interesting with what they added, and that was cool. But it is also more to try to work out as far as what am I supposed to be doing, how am I supposed to be doing it, what makes sense to score points. So that's all up to you and your preference. I'd say if you thought that the base game before was overwhelming and that the bot was also overwhelming, this isn't going to change that. Even though the bot's more streamlined, the game itself and the way the bot plays has still got a lot of things to learn and consider, and a lot of things to understand before you can play it. So be careful about that. But I'd say if you like the other one, you'll love this. And if you, you know, if you're looking for something to really sink your teeth in and play and get a lot more mileage, these extra expansion modules will definitely do that. So I recommend it for those who are ready to press some serious cardboard weights. If you're ready for this, then this is what you want. And if you thought the game was cool, but the bot was tough, this will make the bot a lot easier. And I definitely really appreciate that they did that. Now, it is too bad I had to reprint the new player aid here, the 1.5, because they did update that and they added a few things that are helpful, things that are easy to miss, which wasn't part of the original player aid. For instance, the reminder to, when you conquest, push one of those casualties up. That was missing on the first player aid. It's here on this one. But anyway, either way, I do like the game a lot. I still like it. I still think the expansion was worth it. I don't think that it made the game too much to handle. And I do like the way that they resolved the bot and made it better. So thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Whatever you decide to play in the future, I hope you have a fantastic time doing it. Take it easy, everybody.